video games help you take your mind off things. You hold them near in order to never forget or lose them, and they're a great form of entertainment. When I arrived home from school, when I wanted to spend time alone or with my family, when I felt happy or sad, they were there. They offer an escape from reality, and that's why video games are like a best friend. Taking in what you're simultaneously viewing and controlling results in a particular type of joy. It's why video games entered a #1 spot for me and have remained there since. A perfect way to unplug from the real world and disconnect from reality, to experience wonder, emotion, to learn and to grow. Did I grow? I hope so. Games are full of beauty, delight and awe. I wished to spend as much time as possible consumed by imaginary worlds, engrossing myself in everything of a similar nature. VHS tapes containing cartoons and movies, books, art, the internet and music. Back then I felt no limits. There still are no limits. I grew up in tandem with video games. Being a 90s kid, I couldn't help but notice they were constantly changing and drastically developing. The jumps between PlayStation, Nintendo and PC, witnessing how everything advanced, improved and matured. All of those journeys are an integral part to my life's memories, and needless to say, it continues on. Rewinding back to the best place to start, the beginning. The PlayStation entered my life first. My dad owned one when I was a baby and played Final Fantasy 7 and 8. Blind playthroughs initially, then he utilised the guidebooks. Whilst I was too young to comprehend it, I'm certain the vivid moving images hypnotised me to no end. My dad told me I thought the main protagonist, Cloud, was my cousin. I'm just glad I didn't freak out convinced he was stuck in the TV. The PS1 was beyond compare, and it paved my way forward. Unfortunately, I didn't follow in my dad's footsteps and jump onto the Final Fantasy train as soon as I figured out how to wield a controller, but somewhere along the line I picked up the Roll Cage demo. Proof is even in the corner of this photo. You could drive on walls and you could continue to race even if you flipped over. That was all that mattered. I moved on to games such as Destruction Derby Raw, Colin McRae Rally, Formula 1 and Walt Disney World Quest Magical Racing Tour. There's a pattern here clearly. Racing mesmerised me. The rush of adrenaline from all that crashing, no doubt. Plus, I liked going fast. On my 7th birthday, armed with a couple slices of Barbie-themed birthday cake, I settled down in front of the television to watch my younger cousin shoot enemies in Die Hard. I realised, looking back, the game was quite violent, labelled 18+. Even my 7-year-old self understood how cool it was.
Don't let him get away.
In contrast, I was honoured to own my very own dance mat, paired with Dancing Stage Euromix. Dancing Stage Euromix is the game that represents my PS1 era. Each song is burned into my long-term memory, but specifically, More Than This 99 by Emmy reigns supreme. I prided myself in my skill. Being able to pick hard for some songs was way bigger of an achievement than any certificate I had ever gotten. The best games on PS1 lists eluded me at that age, although I played bits and pieces of Spyro the Dragon and, most importantly, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, the PS1 and PC version. Tony Hawk became one of my favourite series, even though I wasn't a natural-born skateboarder. Rolling around the hangar level in 2 felt more than enough, plus causing the helicopter to take off and crash through the roof filled me with pride. Games introduce a way for you to make your own choices. In a way, it increases confidence, especially as a kid where things may be dictated by parents or school. Even as an adult, entering a space controlled solely by you, a space where you can simply let go, is comforting. The PS1 never gathered dust, sat comfortably in our living room for many years. We owned plentiful demo discs and games I hardly touched, like Pandemonium and Excalibur, even though they intrigued me. Compared to the Sega Mega Drive or this random plug-and-play controller we had, the PS1 alone caused my view of gaming to expand, and over time its presence became stronger than ever. I realised I liked gaming quite a bit when the PS2 got introduced to our home. Something clicked. The PS1 and PS2 were stacked neatly atop one another, both ready to be played at a moment's notice. With the CRT TV, it's a view certainly not forgotten. Turning a console on, opening up the case, putting in a disc is, to this day, a simple pleasure. The disc for The Simpsons Hit and Run was very well used. The mix of the cartoonish graphics, the sound effects and gameplay rendered it iconic. I drove around instead of completing missions as that brought me the most comfort, but I would laugh every time I blew up the pink sedan.
Why me? Nothing lasts forever.
Gaming equaled freedom. If I could feel an immense amount of freedom playing a game, I'd do it. I customarily turned off anything remotely disruptive, like the police response in Driver 3, so I could roam around as I pleased. A strange calm washed over me whilst selecting the location, weather and vehicle. With a pause, I would take a moment to appreciate the music in the background. Joint with a beautiful sunset, the main character's home felt expensive and large, yet welcoming and homely, all taking place in a city that looked like nothing I had ever seen before. At this time, I had also adored Roller Coaster Tycoon with my entire being, and was waiting patiently for Roller Coaster World on the PS2. After a few painfully long months, on Christmas morning, I thought my parents had forgotten about it. Constantly bringing it up had been a never-ending activity for me, so I felt burdened by harsh reality and disappointment. Turns out, my grandma, who I called Nanny actually, had purchased it and brought it over in the afternoon. Upon unwrapping, I instantly recognised the cover. Relief washed over me. My prayers had been answered and my patience rewarded. This moment defined my PS2 era. You know when you play a game so much you can recall the sound effects with ease? Roller Coaster World is that for me. When a roller coaster is too intense, the riders thrash around and fly off, and I have no struggle remembering that noise at all. Memory is a wonderful thing. Isn't it strange how you can hold memories from oddly specific moments rather than from the full intended experience? I won't forget the visuals of launching the driver as far as possible in order to knock down bowling pins in Flat Out 2, or how in the 2010s I often watched people showcase their game rooms, collections and setups on YouTube. Seeing others express their passions online via video was this fresh new thing, like looking through a window into their lives, people with similar interests to me. With that, there was a sense of community, and even inspired me to upload my first YouTube video back in 2011, and I made many more video game related channels after that, but that's a story for another video. Gaming caused a range of emotions. I was creeped out by the PS2 boot screen and the uncanny nature of Wallace and Gromit Project Zoo. Deep down, I sensed the PS2 was, in a way, haunted. Gaming is otherworldly, and being an only child, I was prone to freaking myself out. I even get the shudders now. Playing a game at night can put me on the road to an existential crisis. Detachment from reality happens when I'm fully engrossed in media, and when snapping back I feel hazy, dreamy and weird. Surreal, like the world doesn't really exist. I played my way through games erratically, playing one for a bit before switching to something else. To this day, it's rare for me to play a game for countless hours on end. As a kid, before going on holiday, I fit in games like LEGO Star Wars for 15 minutes, perhaps half an hour. I hadn't seen Star Wars, but I couldn't help but stare, fascinated at the virtual version of LEGO on the screen. PS2 characters had charm. I would often pick Bones in Strike Force Bowling, and I spent many hours in Pro Evolution Soccer 5's player creator making sure to set all of the attributes to full so my footballer could be miles stronger than everyone else. The freedom extended even further with character creators. Making your own character in The Sims allowed creative expression, my first experience with the series surprisingly originating on the PS2. When looking at The Sims 2, I am also reminded of the co-op mode. I potentially played a small amount of co-op with my cousins, but predominantly I recall Starsky and Hutch was my dad. We played a lot of it together, failing to complete it, but the golden days of couch co-op will forever have my heart. I started exploring more genres, obsessed with demos like Jet Li Rise to Honor. So obsessed, to the point I can still visually recite the whole level to this day. It teleported me to a completely new place which compelled me to play it over and over. I know I wasn't the only one during car journeys who looked out the window, pretended there was a person sprinting, jumping and leaping over traffic, and Jet Li Rise to Honor reminded me of that. Frankly, I was easily impressed. In Bratz Rock Angels, the roller skates made a weird squeaky noise upon braking. The main point being that I thought it was technologically advanced for roller skates to be in the game to begin with. A similar feeling I had when swan diving in Tomb Raider Legend. Tomb Raider was this incredible gymnastics and swimming simulator to me, and Lara Croft is forever in the running for the coolest woman ever. Next to Mindy from Tony Hawk's American Wasteland.
I can skate as well as any of these elements.
Speaking of Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, it's one of my favourite PS2 games. I wish I could play it again for the first time. There were numerous missions and environments to explore, but I was also astonished at the fact that you could get off your board and run around, ride a bike even. I fell in love. Naturally, I also enjoyed Tony Hawk's Underground, however the setting filled me to the brim with anxiety, especially after the opening where a monster in the drain eats a person and spits out the bones. I couldn't press the skip button fast enough. There's really something special about the PS2 Tony Hawk games. Tony Hawk wasn't just a pro skater anymore. He had become this video game icon. I had a unique experience with handhelds, the first of which I owned was the Game Boy Advance. With my parents being in a band, I tagged along most weekend evenings until I was about 14. For someone who doesn't drink alcohol at all, I sure did spend a lot of time in pubs growing up. I would pocket the GBA to take along with me after upgrading from colouring books. Games like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I loved the film, not as much as the 70s one though. Tony Hawk's Underground 2, I very much enjoyed this virtual skateboarding thing my parents realised, and Cats. The Cats' main menu music is frankly nightmarish, not helped by the GBA's speaker quality. The GBA featured the classic NES series. Even though I didn't know what the NES was at the time, I had Super Mario Bros. And Ice Climber, and I would constantly restart from the beginning. I seldom wanted games to feel tedious, frustrating, or stressful. I threw away boxes for GBA games, a weird but understandable choice. Made from cardboard, they were quite easily tattered or damaged. Regretting it, I vowed to never dispose of them again. I enjoyed the skateboarding in Bratz Rock Angels to the surprise of no one. The fully boxed versions of a couple Bratz games are now in my collection actually, and somewhere at some point for some reason I bought the Polar Express and Scrabble. It was a comfort to play a handheld console whilst grown-ups did their thing. I frequently escaped reality for a while by making up stories, writing journal entries, drawing, and I relished in the fact that retreating into video game worlds was another option. Clearly an introvert, these hobbies pleased me. My introduction to computer gaming was via my dad's PC, which sat enticingly in the corner of the living room for many years. I jumped onto it young, the drawers next to it containing wads of paper but also 2 big boxes of compilation PC games which featured NASCAR, Lemmings and one called Overboard. I had fun with those but also CD-ROMs like Art Attack, Babies, a Story Maker program which I still can't find to this day, and Pet/Suvet, which are actually quite hilarious.
We've got a rat in today whose name is Renfield. I know, very funny. Can we get this going? It would be nice if we knew more. He could be fine, he could be ill, he could be wondering why you brought him here. No, actually that's us.
I think back very fondly of full motion video cutscenes. My dad's PC was a vessel for solitaire, pinball, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and eventually the World Wide Web. I would find a few virtual worlds to take part in: Club Penguin, Hebba Hotel, and Moshi Monsters. When I was 10, I was blessed with my own laptop. A smugness came over me when I proved I could turn it on all by myself, as if I had outsmarted my parents. There's footage of Cats 5 and Scrabble being immediately installed, two other games I'd likely experienced on my dad's PC prior. Looking back, I realise how much I miss installation menus. They built up anticipation. As mentioned, my favourite game, or should I say series, was Roller Coaster Tycoon. 2 and 3 brought me just as much joy, simply a fulfillment from how you could manage everything in such detail. Considering one of my creative hobbies as a kid was designing my own theme parks, either on paper or with PowerPoint, I'm not surprised. Tycoon games would take up a considerable chunk of my time: Zoo Tycoon, More Tycoon 3, Marine Park Empire Tycoon, and School Tycoon alongside Hotel Giant and Theme Hospital, the latter feeling like a horror game of sorts with aliens, risk of death, and patients' painfully swelled heads. Both PS2 and PC games could make me feel weirdly unsettled, but even so, they drew me back in every time. You know what I said about taking my GBA to gigs? Well, I took my laptop a few times too. Once I sat backstage behind giant looming curtains, a tad embarrassed, laptop plugged into an extension lead my dad was using for his equipment on stage. That's a session of Roller Coaster Tycoon I'll never forget. It also makes me miss when laptops would come with disk drives. I'm not sure how old I was when I got my original silver Nintendo DS complete with Nintendogs. With the new innovative touchscreen and microphone, the DS felt like a huge step up from the GBA. I didn't wonder as much how these things were possible, I was simply grateful for the experience. Plus, to my joy, the DS came equipped with a GBA slot. Nothing could be better than that. Nintendogs taught me the responsibility of looking after a pet, walking it, feeding it, brushing it, teaching it to sit and roll over, and how to catch a frisbee. It also taught me about mortality, terrified that if I forgot to feed it for a week, it would end up dead. My love for simulation continued with the Imagine series, especially Imagine Teacher, Imagine Gymnastics, and an ice skating one. Despite, for example, not having access to gymnastics and rarely being able to take a trip to the ice rink, these games gave me a taste of the real thing. They were fun and exciting in their own way. Also, I had Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, of course, Scribblenauts, a tennis game, and Poorly Pet's My Vet Practice, a game that made the cut for one of my favourites. Alongside Nintendogs, it made me feel so responsible. The list for the times and places I could access video games had grown, and gaming on the go was always an exciting endeavour, although I get a bit motion sick, so gaming in the car wasn't as much of an option, to my dismay. I carried my trusty DS with me to a range of places. Just knowing it was there made me happy. The Wii next entered my life and stuck around for a huge part of my early teen years. The Wii's calendar records play history, and looking back I see numerous hours switching between a handful of games around Christmas days in 2008 and 2009. Having musician parents, I was subsequently influenced to have an interest in instruments, so I asked for the full setup of Rock Band. Not Guitar Hero, it's Rock Band till the end with me. I found joy in recording myself and my cousins play the game, although I selfishly hogged the guitar, forcing my youngest cousin to sing and the other to play bass. We probably should have shuffled around the roles a bit. Sorry guys. On a scale of high energy to cozy, the Wii is both. My Sims and My Sims Kingdom were my sit down on the sofa and play pics, alongside Thrillville Off the Rails, which really satisfied my theme park simulator addiction. I think about those games fondly. With so many hours put into them, the level of nostalgia calms me. Owning them is like owning a piece of my own history. On the rare occasion I borrowed from the library, I picked out Endless Ocean. Swimming in the ocean, something I had never done, was suddenly doable, albeit virtually, and it gifted me a freeing feeling like no other and left a lasting impression. Diving wasn't on my bucket list of to-dos, yet I immersed myself, took it all in, and appreciated it as if I was doing it for real. I couldn't pass up the simple pleasures of the Me channel, Everybody Votes channel, Photo channel, and even the Weather channel. Making Miis is the character creator of the Wii. They can look utterly ridiculous or captivatingly charming, and I always made sure to pick my own Mii in games like Wii Sports and Wii Music. The Wii Fit, which also utilised Miis, had sold out everywhere at the time I wanted one. We picked it up eventually, and enjoyment came from trying out the balancing games, jogging, and yoga. I actually turned it on recently and the screen proceeded to tell me that I'd been away for thousands of days. There are registered accounts for people who aren't even alive anymore, that's how long it's been. For simply promoting movement/exercise, the Wii Fit was a respectable addition to the gaming industry, but other games utilising the board didn't feel quite right. I had Skate It briefly, and I couldn't shake the awkward feeling of trying to use the Wii Fit board as a skateboard, but maybe I should give it another chance. Many Wii games required space, so the living room housed them. It was a venture in of itself to go downstairs and play any chance I got. With the Wii utilising motion controls, it was a fresh experience all round. It being advertised to families meant more of my friends and classmates had one too, though it brought an additional level of danger, many stories of smashed TVs, etc. In my case, one time I didn't have the wrist strap on, God forbid, and I flung the controller accidentally into the conservatory door. Luckily it didn't leave a scratch, but truthfully I have given a few people a bruise on their arm from smacking them by accident. Just Dance could make you go crazy. The amount of energy I exerted playing the Wii is unimaginable now. Wii Sports was one of the first Wii games I played, the disc squeezed into a square sleeve for ease of storing. My young brain could now succeed at golf despite never setting foot on a green, I could succeed at boxing despite a deep desire to avoid conflict, and getting a virtual strike in bowling was on the same level as getting a strike in real life. Wii Sports made you feel like a winner. On the other hand, I have deep regrets getting rid of Mario Party 8. I kept so many of my games, yet I let that one go, but life isn't without its tragedies. We all part with a game at some point in our lives. I carried on. My arms got tired playing Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. I played Rabbids Go Home with my dad, and being able to shake a rabbit around in a Wii controller was utter genius. Lastly, my love for racing never dwindled, and I became a fan of Mario Kart, as did most of the world. I even had a third-party steering wheel alongside the official one. Of course I gave the non-official one to other people. God, I was a menace. An addiction claimed me on a Christmas day when I received my beloved blue DSi. I started playing Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, the first game I truly beat and my first time seeing credits roll after all my hard work. In 2009, at 13 years old, Nintendo had taken over. This is also the era I started getting video game magazines, and surprise surprise, I had a subscription for Nintendo magazine. They are all here with me comfortably on a shelf, and it's exactly where this Mario DS holder is from too. The magazines and handhelds journeyed with me to a range of places, but since I loved taking photos, the DSi was just as much a camera as it was a gaming device, and there are hundreds of pictures to prove it. Pictures from in the car, McDonald's, at home, out and about, you name it. I must have been skilled at keeping the DS charged. I was incredibly fond of Super Mario 64 and New Super Mario Bros., the minigames in the latter the cause of my blooming competitive side. A couple of my school friends had DS's and Wii's, so gaming with them became a new activity. Let's just say I was motivated to outshine anyone who dared challenge me. Brain training, however, wasn't quite the same. It was a humbling experience, even as a 14-year-old. I felt smart playing it in ways, but mainly I loved stamping the days on the calendar. Doing the stamp every single day, it felt like I had accomplished something. Video games are so intrinsic to the memories I had growing up that I can effortlessly link them to the environments I was in. It's similar to when a smell reminds you of something, but video games don't smell, of course. It doesn't matter what game it was, as long as I connected with it in some way, it holds importance. Writing this video constantly jogged my memory, sending me back to countless scattered moments in time, like when I tried playing online multiplayer and was deeply confused by it all and I retreated back to single player. Or when I forgot my little bag with my GBA and games at one of my parents' gigs because I took it to a pub lit by candlelight and it was very dark and therefore easy to lose sight of something. If you dropped anything onto the floor, it was sucked into an abyss. I once lost my copy of Animal Crossing Wild World at a gig too. It was some sort of party and I believe it got swept up with confetti afterwards by cleaners. I never got it back. Memories can lean either positive or negative, or both. Perhaps. I remember making a lot of progress with my Sims only for there to be a power cut. It sucked, but also it didn't matter. I loved the game and was excited for an excuse to relive the past hour or so. There was a brief time I studied abroad and I experienced the weirdly intimate feeling of sharing a controller with someone I liked when playing Octodad. I once also took my PS2 and games on the trip to my first boyfriend's house. My absolute fondest memories come from Christmas, when I would be ecstatic to receive a game I had patiently waited for. That kind of excitement was truly unmatched. But everyone's experience with media varies. Back then, my initial intention wasn't to beat a game. I opened up a game to do exactly what I wanted, whatever felt freeing and fun. Music and soundtracks teleport me back too. Anytime I witness a skateboard, I am reminded of Holiday by Green Day as I set the soundtrack in Tony Hawk's American Wasteland to only play that song as a kid. Clearly, I liked it more than any other track. Utada Hikaru's songs for Kingdom Hearts are all so special. I experienced the first game and songs via the internet rather than first-hand from the PS2, and it's probably the game I watched from afar the longest before playing it myself. And by the time I did, the opening made me misty-eyed. When I ultimately upgraded to a more powerful laptop, I was once again inspired by YouTubers and saw the hilarity of the game Magicka and, naturally, Minecraft. The former, though, inspired me to create a Steam account in May 2011. From what I can see, I only owned Magicka for 4 years. I hardly used Steam at all until about 2015. My Steam usage ramped up after that, but I remember when I picked up Gary's mod and refunded it soon after on account that I didn't have anyone to play it with. But that was okay. Rollercoaster Tycoon is on Steam after all. A year before making my Steam account, I had gotten a PS3 for my 14th birthday in 2010. Subsequently, I was also introduced to the world of achievements, and I felt like I had grown up as a gamer. I received Burnout Paradise at the same time, and it reignited my passion for going fast and crashing in glorious ways. I've switched PSN accounts a fair few times in the past. I can see one account from 2012 and nostalgia hits me like a brick when I see the games I played the most. I can also access an account I used between 2013 and 2015. After the first few years of having a PS3, I solidified a go-to library of games. Dirt 2, Saints Row the Third, Borderlands, Uncharted, Little Big Planet, etc. My first playthrough of Borderlands terrified me, because at the end of a quest a dude ends up hanging from a ceiling fan. I was shocked to the core, but I was proud of myself for getting through it. My first playthrough of Heavy Rain was during a not so good year of my life, but weirdly enough, thinking of the game now brings a feeling of comfort despite any negative associations. I also tried playing Mirror's Edge back then, and I say tried because being chased is scary. I recall messaging someone whilst dying over and over, describing to them in detail my failures. Despite these hardships, I found joy with lighter games such as Saints Row and Little Big Planet. Prior to getting Uncharted 2, I browsed gameplay videos on YouTube and had deemed it not scary and therefore playable. Uncharted 2 would end up being one of my all-time favourites. Being a rule follower and people pleaser, I'm surprised that throughout my childhood and teenage years I played so many titles with an age rating above my own age. I remember holding back on scarier games like Bioshock, and after my 18th birthday I remember staring at it in the shop thinking, wow, I can play this now. It can take months or years for me to get to new releases, which was harder as a kid, sure, but I was also easily distracted. I wasn't so addicted to games that it became a replacement for other hobbies or playing outside. The time I allocated to games was special. I fitted them in whenever I could. For example, I'm nostalgic for the beginning of Final Fantasy XIII as I tried to get as far as possible before going on a school trip. I once stayed awake into the early hours of the morning to continue Final Fantasy XIII too, putting on an alarm and sleeping for a mere few hours so I could wake up and play it again as soon as possible. Maybe I got 1 or 2 hours sleep that night. It was great. Staying up late doesn't come as easily now, but there's a whimsical ambience in the air when you game in the peaceful early hours of the morning. Some years ago in December I made a routine of waking up before the sun rose to play Kingdom Hearts, surrounded by Christmas decorations twinkling in the dim dawn lighting. It's a festive game to me, despite the fact it starts on the beach. Continuing with the skateboarding genre, I got into Skate 3, struggling with the controls at first, but then laughing so much with the game's humour. BlazBlue was a game I had very early on with the PS3, but I wasn't very good at it. I was much better at Alice Madness Returns, a game I still highly praise for its style, hence equalling quite a few replays. Further down the road, around 2016, I picked up Dragon Age, the series that is now number 1 on my podium. I got Origins in the US, actually, and I struggled with it so much then that I gave up, only to adore it when I tried again later. I was at a low point, physically and mentally, but I remember both Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2 helping me through, with its host of characters, thousands of lines of engaging dialogue, deep lore, and the ability to be a mage and cast magic in combat. At the end of 2016, I started playing games more with the intention to see them through to the end. The amount of games I was playing grew and grew, and that's exactly where I'm going to end this video. I ticked off a lot between 2016 and today, which is why I may make a separate video on these particular years. I adore video games. I take great pleasure in collecting physical media. It's a huge comfort being surrounded by items you love, and finding stuff secondhand out in the wild brings me joy. I have more of an appreciation for game art. I'm trying to understand more in why games are made, the history, psychology, the creativity, the beauty, why games do and don't do well, etc., and how the internet has affected all of this. I don't think my spark for gaming is quite the same as it was when I was a kid. Mental health effects, stuff like that, but I believe the magic is still there. It's inside all of us. Even if it doesn't spark for video games, it's likely there for something else. A passion. These feelings and thoughts I have about gaming now will be nostalgic in years to come. The fact I can still get lost in these worlds is such a huge pleasure, and I am eternally grateful to have been able to experience all of these consoles and games throughout my life. All I can hope is that I will experience more. I've been fairly friendless throughout many points of my life. My school days prior, not the hardest but not the easiest either. Simply many months of feeling lost and struck with layers of grief, confusion and all that negative stuff. But this is why I say video games are like a best friend. They offered the escape I craved. But not just craved. Needed.